welcome, and thank you so very much for joining me on another episode of Talking Innovation. I'm Grant Asplund. I'm so thrilled and happy you're here. And man, oh man, I've told you so many times, I'm the Gilligan in this equation, but I just love it when I get what I call world-class professors, okay? I mean, this guy today, my guest, he doesn't even need an introduction. All you got to do is, you're probably very likely one of his 130 plus thousand followers on LinkedIn. The guy needs no introduction. Chuck Brooks is with me today. Chuck, how you doing, man?
Doing great. It's great to be here again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Gosh, it's been a couple of years since we spoke last, and holy shit, how much has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, seriously, right? I mean, if you think about how different the world is right now and the rate of change and acceleration, and I thought things were moving pretty quick when we spoke last time.
It's like the 2 years has been a century, right? I mean,
It is.
really, it's sped up, and the real progenitor of that has been artificial intelligence in a lot of different ways. But
Yep.
it's pretty amazing. It's really changed the whole landscape, the industry, government, even the military. Everything you could think about is now impacted by AI.
Yep.
And it's not just AI; it's other technologies too that are being sort of fused with AI,
Yep.
including quantum eventually, and others, material science, medical, and everything.
It's
So it's a
crazy.
really, really exciting time.
It's, it is an exciting time. I kind of find it fascinating how it seems like, we have this nucleus, let's call it, of people, of users that really are kind of into this, right? I mean, they're feeding on it and they're into it and they're watching and staying on it and using it. But outside of that nucleus, it seems like there's a massive populace that's not really in it like that nucleus is. And I think, I'm speculating kind of on my own on what I'm seeing and hearing and observing. I want your thoughts. So you've got this high energy nucleus with seemingly a somewhat lethargic rest of the cell, all the rest. But yet companies, you hear the hype of their deployment and they're going to build and do and all this and the savings, but then you read about all these failures and you read about it staying in the lab. It's not really getting out. And so what's really going on? Give me an assessment, because I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think there's two things. There's a rush to the new shiny toy, which has happened with a lot of companies. But what's lacking was a strategy, right? And it's not just the first time with any technology. They just sort of, okay, we got to have this. They do with cyber products all the time. We need to have that, and then they don't have the plan to or the framework to how to use them, the right people, the expertise in house. How it's going to affect return on investment, how it's going to affect security.
Yeah.
So they just sort of just rush to grab it, and sort of the follow me kind of thing. And not surprising, a lot of them have failed, and they've also overreached a lot of them. But that's not to say that this isn't a really revolution, because it is. I think you're right. Most people are not really focused on what these AI platforms are capable of doing and how they keep every couple weeks bettering themselves, and the data and the large language models are just getting more and more sophisticated and capable.
Yep.
And how they're all complementary in some ways. Some do better things than others, and the amount of trillions of dollars going into this. So, people are sort of, oh, well, it's there. I just do my work, whatever. But there are the core group of people that are just enamored with this. Me being one, and you being one. Yeah, it's transforming.
It's transformative overall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just remarkable. And I interrupted you. I don't mean
no, you didn't interrupt. I think you're right.
It's crazy.
And I think eventually everyone will come on board. I see it more and more now with companies adopting their own version of a platform and customizing it and encouraging employees to use it. And also, in education now, it's really becoming sort of you need to have it. That they train the students and the faculty. So we're going through a different a period of world, and people don't really look at the implications of it. How it's going to basically impact how we how we do research, how we think,
Right.
how we evaluate things. It's really going to be transformative in every possible way.
When you were
And
talking earlier, Chuck, about ready, fire, aim
yeah,
sometimes is the modality of new tech, of high, cool new tech. And I just, man, it to me screamed virtualization, right? When
yes,
when when it first came about, right? And everybody was, and you heard these stories of, well, it's in the lab. Well, no, it's not. He just pushed this to production, and you're right, because there was just this crazy misunderstanding about the space overall. But this is different, Chuck, because it seems like we're dealing with something that has there's more there's the autonomy, the agentic capabilities, the consequences of just leaping off of this cliff might be much more severe overall than maybe previously. What do you think?
I 100% agree. We're on a trajectory, and you said it perfectly. Just 2 years ago, let's go back 2 years ago, generative AI. All of a sudden, you prompt, you get answers. It was all this money poured into it. Okay, generative AI is the thing to be. A year later, it's agentic AI. Instead the agents come to
And then
you with the
MCP,
information. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, then
yes,
then then MCP comes out and it
yes,
changes the game for everybody on how I
yes.
can leverage agents.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it really is it's basically in enabling the human. If you look at it, we're enhancing every capability we have
Yeah,
if it's used right. I mean, you
yeah.
you have to have guardrails, of course, and you have to have observability and other things. But
Well, it enhances in every regard whether
whether, yeah,
it's kind of back at what your intentions are, right?
yes,
Because and this kind of is a great segue maybe into, I'd love to hear what you're seeing. In fact, I was talking to my son today, and during our phone conversation he got a phone call. He says, hang on, I got a call. And just shortly thereback, he comes back and he says, well, that was the weirdest scam call I've ever had. And I said, oh, yeah, tell me about it. He said, well, it was definitely AI. I could tell just from the voice. I mean, it was good, but it was definitely AI. And it went on and said, how it said, I see you were at this website and this, and had my name, or no, my address with his name. And, it was kind of, I mean, it was really, but clearly he knew
mhm.
this was something that was crafted and was AI driven. Um, and I think that, you know, as we move into this new era, the bad guys, just like in video and porn, man. Remember when you could first start to watch video on the internet in the early 2000s, the ones that could do it the best were the porn providers, because they were the ones that had to, right? That just
It-
perfected it. And it still remains today. Those guys are far ahead on the ability to deliver video. Well, the nefarious are way ahead of us on using this technology and employing it and deploying it and kicking our ass. What are you seeing out there? You
yeah,
seeing?
yeah. It's a really amazing what is happening if you look out at the ecosystem, and most threat analysts sort of underestimate the capabilities of some of these nefarious adversaries out there because they're recruiting the best and the brightest. They're getting
Yeah,
paid well. They have
yeah,
all the latest tools and the first to experiment with it because they have nothing really to lose, right? They're
yeah,
not. They're very difficult to prosecute and find. They're often protected by some of those Eastern European countries. They never extradited, and they give cuts sometimes. Whether you're talking to the Russian government and stuff, so they're part of
right,
it. And
right.
so their use of deep fakes, their use of a lot of other tools of getting by multi-factor authentication, all these things you can see them just sort of happening every day.
Yeah,
And while we're trying to react, so I think that it's really it's sort of imperative now to basically say that okay, our adversaries. We've done this too on the geopolitical scale. We underestimated China and their capabilities too,
Yep.
particularly in cybersecurity and quantum
Yeah.
and hypersonic. So I think what is happening now is that we have to have a reevaluate with these new technologies, that it's a completely new ecosystem where you not only have these sophisticated actors that have the best first use of these technologies, but it also enables people that aren't quite so sophisticated play in this game in a
Yep.
bad way. And
And,
they're doing it
and
too.
they don't give a shit if it's perfect or not, if their intentions are nefarious or bad, right? And what I
Right.
what I
Yeah.
mean is, in an enterprise deployment of AI, you're not going to accept that image of a hand with seven fingers. I mean, that's not going to work. I need it to be correct. Whereas the nefarious, they're going, shit, man, that's the best looking hand we've ever had. It was way better than what we had before. You know what I mean? So their acceptance of the inferior I wanted to say inferiority, but I know I still pronounced it incorrect. Inferiority, but the deficiencies, right? They don't care. They'll
Yes.
because it's exponentially better than what they had before.
It's much better, and it's also that since they're automating a lot of these, and they're reaching a larger audience now too, and it
Right.
doesn't take too many to make it worthwhile for them to be a lucrative opportunity for them. So,
Yeah.
and plus they're sharing the targets among each other. So,
Yeah, it seems like
yeah.
the bad guys have really adopted uh, uh, an integrated partnership approach, right? They're happy to share if they can just get a penny or two, right? I
Yeah, they're
mean,
happy
they're
to share, and they're sharing the profits. Yeah, that's
and to
right.
stay
And yeah,
focused, right? You're starting to see
yeah,
the stratification on these guys do malware, these guys do
yeah.
phishing, these guys get real phone numbers that are real. I mean,
It's
they
become a
kind of all,
business for them. Really,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
organized crime business,
Yeah,
is what it is.
totally, totally. And you know, another thing that's interesting is, you know, I often mention or talk about this with my son, the difference just in how, just your perspective when you're a native versus an immigrant. And so in the context, I'm referring to technology, to a connected world,
Hmm.
a high band connected world, ubiquitous availability. You know, the world we're in, you know, there's a lot of those that you're speaking of in other countries and in our own that they're natives, right? They've never
Yes.
known the world without it. But that also, I think, breeds a different perspective than the one you and I have, simply because we're not natives.
Right.
We are
Right.
immigrants and we went through the analog era. And so, you know, you can't lose that. Uh, but conversely, a native can't gain that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You can't. The experience won't change, and
Right.
it's something you can't change the past. But it is
Right.
interesting because you now have a whole world that is really digitally wired to the brain. Right? If you look at the
Precisely.
young kids coming up, I mean, they don't even have to look. They're just on the phones, and it's going to have implications beyond cybersecurity and beyond anything else too. I think in our certainly on our attention spans, but
Yeah.
probably more with other things, with anxiety and mental illness and all kinds of things we
Oh,
haven't contemplated yet.
yeah. We could, you know, we could spend quite a bit of time on that, specifically as a case study with my 24, soon to be 25-year-old. And I've mentioned this before on the program where, and it's really quite impressive to me when I see these stark differences that I never even thought of and he thought of. And I'll give you an example. So I was in the hospital when I was like 2 months old for 2 months, right? So I was taken from my mom. And it was a different world in
Yeah.
1960 in the hospitals, right?
Yeah.
Everything was sterile and white and no family rooms. Um, and it was years later when I went to therapy that I actually realized that one of the consequences of that episode was that for 2 months I thought I was going to die because I was away from my mom, and at least that's what
Yeah.
psychology says. And and it was quite fascinating to me. It was one of the things I really loved about going to therapy and just learning about myself. Well, the reason I bring it up and what I found fascinating was my son was born about 7.5 weeks early through cesarean. Won't go into the
Yeah.
details, but and so he came out, pink as all get out uh, for about 30 seconds and then turned blue. His lungs weren't ready.
Huh.
Straight into ICU, and he was there for about 3 weeks. I never even thought about it my whole life. And it wasn't until I'm in literally 39 years old, sitting in a therapy and talking with a therapist, that this all came out in my life. But at, I think he said he was 10, he was on the internet and he's searching what are the consequences of premature birth. And right, so at 10 years old, he's investigating the psychological and emotional consequences of being prematurely born. And I just found that really, I just found that fascinating for a variety of reasons, not the
Yes.
least of which
Yeah.
he had the wherewithal to think about it, and I never did at all.
Yeah.
But access to that kind of information and how it can change your self perspective and view. I mean, I just think hell, Chuck, like you, man, when you were 10 years old, if you wanted to know something about something, there were pretty much 3 places:
Library.
library,
Parents.
mom,
Yeah.
and if you were fortunate enough to have a mom or dad that bought you the Encyclopedia Britannica and
Yes.
you
Yes.
had that in the bookcase, that's where you went. And I thank God my mom was awesome. I know that was tough for her because, we had the full set and she kept it pretty fresh. Uh, but now, just that example of how accessible information is.
Yes. It's really changed the world in
But
that
let me
sense.
ask you
Yeah.
what you think of this.
Okay.
In that earlier example, I really had 3 choices. And they were the same 3
Yeah.
choices for everybody else for the most part. And my point is, today, my news source, my information source is not so narrow.
Yeah.
It's not so limited. On the contrary, it's so fractionalized that you could watch 5 different stories, look at 5 different websites, read 5 different news stories on the exact same incident, but they'd all sound completely different.
You're right. The inputs are different,
It's telephone, right?
yeah.
And now everybody's got a phone and they're telling the
Yeah.
story, instead of where before it was we had to go to Walter Cronkite, or we went to mom, or we went to the library, and the library had all the same books with few exceptions, right? So there was this level of consistency, and you could say, hey, well, Grant, I can just go to ChatGPT or Claude now, but they're all different too because of how they've been trained.
Different way they use the models, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. The question really then becomes is what is real, real truth,
Right.
because it's difficult to discern sometimes. You could right now you can see it with all the stuff going on with the war stuff, the different propaganda things,
I
film
just
fakes and stuff. It's just
I just saw on the news how, Iran's a closed society.
yeah,
So the only information their society gets is disinformation.
right.
And now they're combining it with AI. and what the people and the population really is receiving, legitimately. I mean, they can maybe get it illegitimately if they have a Starlink or some other source, but that's fascinating to me. That in this day and age, you could still have a country like that is controlling what but I guess North Korea too, right?
North Korea too. Yeah, the two. I mean, luckily they're not as many as there used to be, right?
Right.
But it is problematic, and somehow the people get around and get the truth. I mean, they go outside, like you said, with the Starlink and others. But
every time
but yeah,
every time you say it reminds me of the commercial, and I know you'll remember it. Remember the guy, he's sitting like this, and he's in the chair, and the music comes on, and it starts to blow him back and his hair back,
oh yeah, yeah.
and it's, is it live
There's it Memorex.
or is it Memorex?
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
that was such a great campaign
yeah.
because I still use it all the time because but we're in that era in spades in virtually every aspect of our life now, right?
Yes, and the social media, the echo chambers,
Oh,
of propaganda, that is dangerous because you have an old book I used to read called The True Believer by Eric Hoffer.
hmm,
There's a longshoreman in the 50s that talked about, the nature of mass movements and how easy it is for people to become followers. And you
yes,
see this with these just completely fake things that people start believing,
yep,
and it's scary because you can manipulate them overnight, and you can see how it happened in Nazi Germany and other things. You could just it's just really really fearful of that
yep.
kind of manipulation because people are too gullible.
And the other
And
thing too, before this whole internet phenomenon, I mean, think about it. There was you had to get to a certain level to have the kind of exposure to the audience
yes,
that there was no in between, right? You're
yes,
either playing at local bars and clubs, maybe you get a regional reputation, but you know you really don't have it until you get discovered by Hollywood or by,
yeah,
right, you're on the
right,
big stage. Now we've gotten to a world where there are clubs that have fetishes over whether or not I mean, there's every kind of imaginable club, group,
yeah,
following that and because you've got access to 4 billion people that are on the internet, it's really plausible to get a half a million to a million to a few million others in the
in that
planet
same genre.
that have
Yes,
that
yeah,
same proclivity, you
yes,
know? And so now you have websites that show nothing but feet
yeah,
or, whatever, right? But it's really an interest. And when you look at it from a capitalistic perspective, in that old model, I mean, you struggled to make a living playing at bands and
and made your
taverns
meal money,
around,
right?
right?
Yeah.
But you get a million others that all have the same proclivity, and there's actually a living there.
Yeah, there's influencers, there's a whole network of people that really have
Yeah,
no education that just all of a sudden are fashion experts or whatever, and
right.
it's
And
just create a
and
whole thing. It's just
there. In fact, I had one on my program, super guy. But I asked him, off air, uh, how'd you become? And he said, I woke up. I said, I want to change my job and I'm going to be this. And I was from that day forward.
yeah,
I mean, and when you think about it, today's the first day of the rest of your life,
yeah. Well,
right?
I
Why
mean
not,
that's a
man?
good avenue for a lot of people, right? So I think, but it also
Exactly.
has its downfall too. You see a lot of issues, psychological issues, with a lot of these
Oh,
influencers too. I mean, I don't know what it's from, but maybe they can't handle the popularity, or they think it does something to their egos. I'm not sure what it is, but
Yeah,
there's a lot
Chuck,
of issues.
that's another thing I've been quite impressed with my son, because he's really, I mean, he was born in 2001, so pure native.
That's when my daughter was born. Yeah.
And so technology's always been around him. He's,
Yeah.
plus I'm in the industry like you, so I'm sure your
Yeah.
daughter, it's always been around. And it was in the last, I guess, in the last year, probably year and a half, there's been a real realization on his part of the consequences, unintended, I think, certainly on my part, unintended, of this whole wired world and carrying around a device that's feeding you dopamine like constant, right? That source. And he's almost become anti-technology, right? I mean, he's really because
He sees the downside.
he sees the isolation that
Yeah.
occurs when you get just into that screen, and how it removes you from that human engagement that frankly I think we're really missing all over. What do you think?
I think so too. I was just actually telling, my daughters that, when I went to college, we didn't even, let alone not have a computer. We didn't have a phone. There was one phone. I was at a fraternity, one phone there that you used like on the weekend,
Yeah,
call
and
your
it's on the
parents. But
wall.
yeah, on the wall. Yeah, that was it. So and everything was, interaction between people. And you want to go somewhere, you walk, go to, wherever you
You'd
need to go,
walk.
party. Yeah, walk. Good. Everything was, you're judged on your relationships. Now you're judged on your relationships on your phone, how many likes you get,
Yep, yep,
and it's all artificial. It's not real.
it's
I
true.
think you don't see the real emotions there. You don't see the real people. It's like you're performative all the time.
Yep,
And you're doctoring pictures or whatever you're doing. You get the right pose.
yep,
Everything is for performance now. It wasn't that way before. It was just more natural. And
yep.
I think that's created a whole society of anxiety.
I
Just
agree.
yeah.
Well, I mean, just the simple ability to go into a room and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
to go and just visit. I mean, I was at the airport and I'm looking around and I'm amazed. Nobody's talking to each other.
Yeah. They're all sitting on their phones. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of, you know it's it's kind of sad,
It is sad.
really.
It is sad.
And
I think.
it's almost like, you want people to say, hey man, what are you here for?
Yeah.
Because we've gotten so caught up in stats, and we can get so good at it because we have so much data, right? And there are all these great things too, but sometimes I guess I kind of just, you know I think it would help more of us if we maybe forget our phones at home once in a while.
Oh, 100%. I mean, technology should be a tool, right? To better us, not to be dependent upon, and we
Yeah,
become dependent upon it. Really,
yeah.
pretty much. I mean, as a
I
society,
want it.
everyone.
I want it
I mean,
now.
we're all guilty on that. I
Hey, you
think.
texted me 5 minutes ago. How come you haven't answered?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It says it's
Yeah.
delivered. It's got a
Yeah.
green check mark by it, right? I mean, we have gotten just so accustomed to now.
Yes.
And I do think one of the horrible consequences of that is does anybody understand the principles of a farm? Because you can't rush that.
Yeah. Yes.
You
Yeah.
the only way to really have great fruit or produce or a great producing farm is to do the right things every day.
At the right time.
I mean, it's just that's it, right? There's no shortcuts. You can't plant seeds and run out and pick the tomatoes in a week. And we've gotten away from, I think, some of that. Almost the same way I think we've gotten away from being in touch with our food source. right? We don't want to
Yeah,
buy
yeah,
that tomato. It has a little blemish, or that apple because it has a little wormhole in it or something. And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
there's a lot of perfectly good apple, and that worm really can't eat very much,
No,
but
yeah,
oh man, no way, no how.
yeah,
And I'm not suggesting we all should buy wormed apples, but I do think, we're out of touch with, what it's like to really grow up and eat food that's dirty because it comes from the dirt and you wash it
right.
off. And,
Yeah.
everything's got to
Instead, we
look
all live in this
perfect.
processed world. Everything's
Yeah.
processed.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's, but the flip side of all that, I guess, is there's a lot of really exciting advancements that are happening to enable us to make more food in smaller amounts of dirt.
Yeah.
There's all
Yeah.
kinds of
There's benefits.
ways,
It's a two-sided coin, right?
and
And I think,
it
yeah,
is
yeah,
AI. AI is having a
yeah,
huge impact on being able to
yeah.
improve. Now they got tractors with cameras that can pick the weeds. That there's amazing stuff.
Amazing technologies. And the other thing we brought up earlier, the Encyclopedia Britannica, we all have that capacity now. We don't have to go and look it up. So if you take advantage of learning,
Right?
it's your oyster. The phone's your oyster. You
Yeah,
could take any
totally.
topic and become insightful on it, and that's
Right.
the real
That's the
advantage.
and but then it now I feel like we're kind of full circle, because then
Yeah,
it's like you have to really be able to determine
if it's accurate.
if it's accurate, if it's
Yeah,
real, if it's right.
yeah,
Right. Whereas, and I guess that kind of full circle, we're back to, that's where the
yes,
world's really different on, mom, the library, or
yeah,
Encyclopedia Britannica. I mean, now there's as many options as you can even consider. And
right.
that's equally what complicates things, right?
It does. It does. But there is history and there is science. At least there are known factors there. Hopefully we
Well,
could.
we have
Yeah.
some politicians that even like to manipulate,
That's true. That's true.
history and science,
Right.
depending,
Well, they
you
do
know,
often that. You're
I
right.
mean, but I hear you. And I think then the issue is the AI that I'm asking to tell me about the Revolutionary War properly trained with the information, or
Or
should
is there
I be
bias?
using,
Yeah.
yeah, which again, I think uh, as we
But you would
move,
get that probably bias in the school too, from your.
totally,
Yeah,
depending on the
or on a
teacher.
TV program, whatever. It's
Yeah.
always the perspective of the person producing it.
Can you ever get away from it? I mean, that's something, it's really, that's something I've thought about before, is, this whole notion of being 100% objective, and how can you really achieve that if you are the one that writes the story? As much as you
Yeah,
try, I
it's
mean,
still your perspective deep
there's
down.
still,
Yeah,
I mean, I think some people maybe are better at it than others,
yeah.
but, and this was actually something I had suggested, um, because I saw this article that talked about the behavior of AI and their survival tactics and deception. I don't know if you saw that. It was a number of months ago where, they would lie, they would give away secrets. In fact, they would even, one implied it would cut the oxygen supply off to the server room if you were going to remove
It
it.
sounds like hell in 2001, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
One wrote a
yeah,
blackmail email
yeah.
because he had access to the email system and saw that the engineer, was having an affair.
Wow.
Now,
Well,
this
maybe
was,
AI is more human than we thought.
well, the AI wasn't
Yeah,
having the affair,
yeah.
but the
But
AI
it was
was,
recognizing it and using it as
but
blackmail.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But what I was suggesting is, you know, and I would ask my audience, how many of you got up this morning and said, I want to survive? I want to live. Now, we didn't maybe necessarily say it out loud, but that's
Yeah.
pretty much everybody's attitude. Well, because we're the ones that trained AI, is it possible that their when they get backed into a corner, when they get threatened for their survival, are their results what really is the same that's in all of us, because we're the ones that train them, even though we never specifically said you want to survive at all costs. See, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Is
know what
it
you're saying.
what was it just in us because
Yeah, were they
it's
deriving
from
it
us?
from what we would our impulses would be?
Yeah,
Yeah. Probably. I would think so right now at this stage, but
yeah,
eventually AI will be training AI.
right.
And that's when maybe things change.
That's when it might get a little frightening.
Yes, yes. Because, hey, what do we need these humans for, right? They're a
Exactly.
problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well,
But
Chuck,
that's AGI, artificial general intelligence. And
it's
I think you
close.
talked about the trajectory we were talking about earlier. It's getting closer, and and pretty soon we're going to be implanting thoughts in our minds and learning languages in 3 seconds, and
We're a cap.
all that stuff's
You know,
happening. Yeah,
they're
well,
they're talking. You know, now they're figuring out how you don't even have to put anything in. You can put a cap on, and it's still,
yeah,
sensing those brain waves. I mean, we're in some exciting times, some really amazing times, some arguably concerning times.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I think you hit it on the point. We're in these times, and we're sort of applying it like cybersecurity reactively.
yeah,
Okay, well, there's the threats. Let's, what do we need to do? Instead of looking forward and saying, okay, how can we really get a framework and a strategy to make these things ethical and encompassing and use it for good?
right.
It's such a limited thing. I mean, Europe's doing a little bit of that, but not really.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
don't know if we're capable of doing that. So I think, but at least we could look at AI and see the functions of it and see where the gaps are and where we need to at least prepare
yeah,
for ourselves so we can adapt to it better.
yeah. Well, certainly, the governance and compliance folks are lining up, right? You
Yes.
got the
Yeah.
EU AI Act that comes
Yeah.
into effect in like about 137, 8 days or something like that, where you're going to need to uh, prove the behavior of your AI. And I was reading. It was amazing. Morgan Stanley slash Apple, they were fined something like 80 some $1 million. This is just in 2024 because they had an AI bot that was checking credit applications, and it was found to be discriminatory, which obviously we know a bot is not discriminatory, but
No.
obviously the
Maybe the
algorithms
programmers were. Yeah.
or it drifted off
Yeah.
from where it was supposed to be, and no one recognized that deviation. But I think that's definitely a real area we need to focus as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
No, I
uh,
absolutely. I mean, they're trying to put more guardrails in these things, but again, when you're talking about innovation, sometimes it's just a race to see how innovative you could be without anything.
that's
To get
right.
ahead of the other person
That's right.
or
That's
other
right.
group. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Chuck, thank you, man, so much for all your time. I know I've
Oh,
had
yeah.
you.
No, it's been a pleasure.
I
It's always great
really I
talking to you.
really appreciate talking with you and your perspective. And so thank you for coming back on the program again.
My pleasure. Look forward to coming back again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The one and only Chuck Brooks. Check him out on LinkedIn. The guy's he's got some serious security chops. You'll be impressed, I'll tell you. I hope you've enjoyed this rambling episode as much as I have. I mean, I just love talking about all this cool new innovation, change, the exciting stuff that's happening in the industry. And the one thing I know for sure is nothing's going to stay the same. It's going to keep changing. And so I'm excited to continue to talk about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, and we'll look forward to having you back on the next episode of Talking Innovation. Thanks so much.